Hello and welcome to this week's Opposition View. We are back again. The international break is almost said and done. Hang in there, ladies and gentlemen, not long left. This week we will be previewing our home tie to Derby on Saturday. And joining me today, I have Chris from the Rams Review podcast. Chris, thank you for joining us.
George, always a pleasure. Good evening, sir.
Thank you. So getting into it, of course, straight away. Derby County recently promoted from League One, of course, had quite a few seasons down in League One after relegation from the Championship. Currently sitting 12th in the table. What I would say is probably deemed as a good start for Derby. How would you sort of describe your season so far?
I agree with you. We're happy with 12 points and only 4 points off the playoffs. We can be really positive if we look at it that way, and 5 off the bottom 3. Look, we were. I think any realist Derby fan will tell you that if they had to stay 21st from now to the rest of the season, we'll take it. So 12th is a bonus, and as we'll allude and go into. We've played 9, we've won 4, and we've lost 5. So that sort of tells you the gun-ho attitude that we have regarding our style of football. So all in all, very happy, quite entertaining as well, which is a surprise when it comes to Paul Warne football. So we're happy.
You just said there that you seem that this season has been quite entertaining so far. Does that reflect on the style of play? So obviously, prior to this video, we've just done a preview for your channel, and you said that the two sides play very, very similar styles of football. What is the Derby sort of style of play?
We're very much work on going through the channels very quickly. We're not a possession team. Paul Warne never has been a possession type coach or manager. I think last year, getting out of League One, we did it by hook or by crook. There was no real style, and we got through. I think this year he's refined it somewhat. He's gone for out-and-out pace on the width, similar to Millwall, and he likes to get the ball diagonally across the pitch really quickly. Interestingly, that recently he's gone to try and get the ball through the zones and play out from the back, which has had a little bit of success here and there, but fundamentally, George, you'll probably see a very quick transition on a counter-attack.
So in terms of your ones to watch, obviously Millwall haven't played Derby in recent years, and I can't say I've seen a whole lot. But when doing my research, you seem to have very fast, wide areas, and the spine of the team seems to be very strong. Who is your one to watch on Saturday? Who is the one Derby player we should be looking out for?
Good question. 2 weeks ago, prior to the international break and before I got injured, I would have said David Ozo, who is a young lad on loan from Crystal Palace and has got a really big future. But unfortunately, pulled up with, we believe, is a hamstring injury, and he might be back for the Millwall game. But I'm actually going to say a guy called Ibui Adams, who is a lad that we signed on loan last year from Cardiff. He was a player well known to the lower divisions at Forest Green. Didn't quite work out for him at Cardiff, and we brought him in on loan last year, and generally just changed the whole season for us. He came in January, and we went on an incredible run, and Ajo got promotion. Thing is about Ibui is that he's an absolute warrior. He just plays with his heart, with a smile on his face, and just gets stuck in. And every team needs that in the centre of midfield. He's not a ball player. He'll come up with the odd brilliant goal. He's probably got the miss of the season already in the bag, and you may have seen it. If not, I recommend you Google it because it's an absolute howler. But I'd go for him. And up top, the goals have been spread all over the place. We're very much getting goals from the widths with Jackson and giving us a few. We're getting goals from set plays. But if I was looking for a guy to step on Saturday, is Ibui Adams.
No, regarding that miss of the season, without being too disrespectful, I have seen it, and it will probably be the worst miss I have ever seen. But in terms of your areas of weakness, if there was going to be a set position or a position on the pitch where we could target, and that would be deemed as your weakness, where we could potentially get in behind and cause you problems, where would that be?
It's interesting because when we play a back four, we're actually really strong, and we've been in all games, and it's just been wonder goals that have sort of have broke us open. And if you look at some of the games that we've played, goals that have gone against us have either been wonder strikes or flukes, or fundamentally, as we alluded to with the Norwich game, should never have stood. I think if we go to a back three and we play three at the back with two wing backs, we could come unstuck. We tend to be better as a back four with the likes of Erin Cashin, Curtis Nelson, Nyambi, who's a very good fullback, will give you 7.5, 10 all day long, and then good old Craig Forsyth. So if there's a weakness, I would say Forsyth on the left isn't the quickest no more. He's approaching 35. He's been at the club for 10 years. But again, on his day, he'll give you 7 out of 10 all day long. We tend to lose out in the midfield away from home because we do rely heavily on creativity and pace on the counter-attack. But what goes against that is obviously defending through the zone. And Ibui Adams can't do it all on his own. He used to have David Ozo on his side, and they were very good as a middle too. The other thing I would say is that we don't really score many goals down the middle. Jerry Yates hasn't scored as such yet up front. So we sometimes are reliant very much on set plays to get us something going. But I would say if it was a weakness, I would say probably down our left side, your right. It's not the strongest.
Okay, so obviously we've spoken about your sort of season so far, but if we're just going to go through some of the results. A disappointing start to the season on the opening day on the Friday night, a 4-2 loss away at Blackburn. However, you then backed up with a win at home to Middlesbrough, followed by another defeat, and then 2 wins on the bounce. However, in your last 4, you went three in a row without a win, 3 losses to Sheffield United, Norwich, unlucky against Norwich, I would say, and then Sunderland, but then followed up with a win against QPR last time. So on reflection, very inconsistent so far. What is your hopes for this season? What is Derby's hopes for this season? Because obviously you've been promoted back from League One back to the Championship through the automatic promotion places. Where do Derby fans stand? What would be deemed as successful, and where do you see Derby being in the league table come 46 games?
I think, George, regarding that question, it depends on when you ask it. If you would have asked us the day after getting promotion from League One, we would say 21st, please, and we'll take that, and we'll then aim for 19th and 18th the following season, and then maintain progress at the Championship. I think if you would have then asked us that question before the international break, where we're 12th, I'll probably say, our eyebrows have been raised. We actually are been in, the defeats that you mentioned, we've been in pretty much all the games somewhat, certainly for a draw away from home. And it's just been individual errors and naivety probably that's cost us the losses. What I will say is that we have a very strong rumour, and it's been touted on local media, that we have a very strong chance of being taken over again between now and January by outside investors they believe are American, and they're looking to acquire 80% share. So George, the answer to that is if they come in before January the 1st, the window, should we say, with some serious dollar, and Derby are tinkering 4 points, 5 points outside the playoffs, who knows? They may try and go for a whirlwind response and go for it, or they might go for solidity, stay constant mid-table, and then build in the summer. So I would say that there's optimism. We are surprised. and we're not surprised if that makes sense, because on our day we're very good, but when we're bad, we're poor.
So potentially room for improvement, but also excitement as well with the potential new owners.
Yeah, absolutely. This name's been touted, and I won't go into the names that I've been told, because obviously for legalities, and if I get it wrong, some very expensive lawyer may turn around and slap something against me. But what I will say is that David Clowes is a hero. He take over Derby when we're in administration. You know, the mess that we're in because of our previous owner and his ambitions to get into the playoffs. And if you go back to 2019, when it was us and Villa, whoever lost that game was in deep doo-doo, to be completely honest. And lo and behold, Villa are now prospering at the top in the Champions League, beating Bayern Munich, and we were on the close of extinction. So going back to David Clowes, he wants realistically to hand the stewardship of the club to an investor. He wants to stay on his chair. I'm not convinced he will stay on his chair. I think he's done his duties as a fan and as a reluctant. He always calls himself a reluctant owner, but he saved the club. I think that if he's overseeing the transition and the takeover, I think it's very exciting, because he's a multimillionaire, very wealthy background, very good, astute family business in construction. So all the rumours and all the information that's being told is exciting and genuine, and no mad shakes coming out of nowhere, and other so-called American agents who are now in prison. There's a guy called Kirchner who tried to take over Derby in admin and now is in a prison in America serving 30 years for fraud. So sometimes you dodge bullets, so we say. But I think this time round, what we're being told is this is a new dawn for Derby.
Exciting times. So moving on to specifically this Saturday, what is your sort of point of view on Millwall? Have you seen much of us? Is there any certain player you've been looking out for, or a certain player you're fearing, say, come Saturday? What's your thoughts on Millwall so far this season and in general?
It's interesting about Millwall, because you're one of those teams that stays under the radar and doesn't, now and then you'll come up with a fantastic performance and just surprise everybody. Looking at your form before the show, and you're the classic WLD, aren't you? You're WLD, win, lose, draw. Regarding the team itself, the one game that sort of stood out to me was your 3-1 against Preston, where you did play really well, and there's you've got Langstaff playing for you who's got history in the Championship, and whilst you've got someone like that, you'll always score goals. You're an unknown entity to Derby. I think it's one of those teams that we won't really know many players. We were speaking about Esse before we came onto the show, and a young lad who's got amazing talent, and doing a bit of research on him between both recordings, I see that there's been interest shown in him already. And I think he's one of those players that if he keeps performing strong between now and January, Millwall are very similar position to Derby at the moment, that we are a club that can be picked on from the higher echelons, and sometimes money talks. So I'd probably say those two. There seems to be a consistency throughout the team, looking at the stats, that you do perform fairly well at home, and it's a pretty strong place to play. I think you've also got the same issues at Derby at the moment, where your away form isn't great. So it'll be interesting to see how you line up. Sort of, if you go like for like against Derby, I think it could be 5-5. You just don't know with the style of play. It could also be 0-0, because they could both easily nullify each other.
Yeah, for sure. Some of the points you made there, of course, two sides which play very, very similar styles of football, two sides which are very good at home, or good at home and not so good at away. Neither team have won away so far this season. And in terms of our ones to watch, of course, you mentioned Macaulay Langstaff there, who's finally off the mark this season. And also Romain Esse, in terms of assets at the football club, is probably the best considering the age and the talent. Let's move on to a score prediction. Obviously, it's been a while since the last time we played each other. I vaguely remember when Derby have come to the Den in recent years was sort of during that COVID sort of period. There was the 1-0 Derby win. I think I want to say it was Jason Knight who scored. And then the season before that was under Wayne Rooney again, where Louis Sibley scored a hat-trick. That was the first game back from during lockdown, the first game back. So that's our recent sort of history at the Den. What is your score prediction on Saturday?
It's interesting you mentioned Sibley's hat-trick, because that was sort of a false storm, because we thought we'd got a superstar in our hands and he never really hit that ceiling again. And obviously he's at Oxford now. Jason Knight has obviously gone to Bristol City, and it doesn't seem to be the player there that he was at Derby. I think it's an interesting fixture, this one, because there is history between the two of them. I don't read too much into history, to be honest, George. I think people hold on to history too much. You know, we can go back to the days of where we knocked you out of the playoffs, and I can remember days where you beat us convincingly. Other times, we normally don't do great at the Den, although I can think of recent results. Craig Bryson, for instance, scoring some screamers. I think he scored a hat-trick against Millwall when we got into the playoff final in 2014 on the way there. And we had a very good team then. We had a team that could control games from start to finish. I think this team's completely different. I would take a 0-0, George, to be honest. I'll take a 1-1. One thing I will say is that we're not free-flowing when it comes to possession football. We do rely very much on the counter-attack. And I think this will be very much how Millwall play rather than how Derby play. So I'm going to go for a 1-1. And I'll probably imagine we're very strong on set pieces. So I won't be surprised to see it come from a corner or a free kick.
Well, interesting that you mentioned set pieces there, because Millwall have notoriously been known to have really tall players in and around the areas and be really strong from set pieces. But I actually think this season set pieces have been really poor in terms of attacking and defending. And like you said, two sides play very, very styles of football, which could go either way. It could be a 0-0. It could be a 5-5. Who knows? Quick one for myself. I'm going to give a score prediction. I'm going to go with a 2-1 Millwall win. I think, based off logic, I think our inconsistencies this season, where it goes win, draw, loss, draw, win. I think we're due a win. Our only two wins, this season have both been at home. And I think we'll get back to winning ways on Saturday. The players have got a well-needed rest after a very busy schedule before the international break. And I do think that will work in our favour. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 Millwall win. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching this week's Opposition View. Chris, of course, from the Rams Review podcast. If you just want to quickly give your podcast a little shout out, whereabouts can we find your channel?
Yeah, we're on all social platforms, George. We're on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and it's at Rams Review Podcast. Follow us on there. My follower, I'm on Twitter and Facebook, and I'm DCFC_CMH. But honestly, George, we always like to hear views and opinions from yourself and other Millwall fans and opposition accordingly. I think it's good to have a bit of banter. So yeah, please follow us, and likewise we'll follow your good self, and we'll catch up at, when you come to the Pride Park.
Perfect. So just prior to this video being recorded, we did a Opposition View, like a preview over on Chris's channel. So if you want to go check that out, feel free. Aside from that, obviously you can check myself out on TikTok. My Twitter is the exact same handle. And of course, do not forget to subscribe to the Chat with Chaps YouTube channel. It's growing. The podcast or the interview with Paul Ifill came out recently. Part 1 did really well, and part 2 should be coming out sooner rather than later. So make sure we will check that out. But for now, Chris, thank you for joining us. And I will see you Saturday if you're going. Thank you. Take care.
And you, George. All the best. Good luck.
Thank you.